Happy Sunday night, everybody. It is the Green Teamers. It is Skaz. It is Jay Stu speaking in the third person. We are here to chat you up about Celtics, Knicks, and maybe, because we have the game on now, maybe a Pacers upset over the Cavaliers, the 4-1 upset. We'll see how it plays out. It's only one quarter, but the Pacers are leading as we're recording this at about 6:30 on Sunday night. Skaz, how you feeling about your basketball team right now?
I'm feeling pretty good. I know some people wanted a more dominant win over the Magic, but 5 games is pretty dominant to me. I thought they adjusted well. Obviously, you saw them come alive in that game 5, and they're healthy. Knock on wood, they're healthy-ish, I should say. It appears clean injury report today. They're going to get Drew back tomorrow night, and I think Drew's a guy where they were able to sneak by without him last series. I think with a guy like Jalen Brunson, Drew is very, very valuable in this series.
So it's interesting that you talk about Jalen Brunson to start off. That we'll take that as your opening take. Two things before we get to Jalen Brunson. One is, and these are quick, like nerdy little statistical things. Celtics won the season series 4-0 by an average of 16.3 points. Celtics averaged 48 3-point field goal attempts against the Knicks. They made 44% of them. Tatum was over 30 points in all 4 games. Jalen Brunson was over 26 points in all 4 games. So the Jalen Brunson thing is interesting because I think the Celtics take this series in 5, and I think the only game they lose is Brunson gets a game winner, game 3, game 4 in MSG, and that's the Knicks moment that they can take into the offseason and be like, see, we did all this. It's like, no, you screwed up. You got Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, and you changed your entire team identity because you're like, oh, let's go all in for Mikal Bridges. That'll shut down Tatum and Brown. No, it won't. It won't. But Yahoo Sports did a great article on how to defend Jalen Brunson. And I assume that Jaylen Brown is going to be the primary defender on Jalen Brunson. And so this story says, quote, I'm going to read verbatim, or as much verbatim as I can. Reading is not fundamental for me as it is for normal people because I'm not normal. But during the 2024-25 season, Brown only defended one player, Zach LaVine, Felger's favorite, for more possessions than Brunson per NBA tracking. So this is real sourcing here. Brown logged 12 minutes, 33 seconds of total matchup time and 72.3% possessions defended. That feels like a lot. Those numbers could spike on a playoff stage. No one scored more points against Brown this season, with Brunson totaling 26 points on 10 of 17 shooting with 2 turnovers per NBA tracking. No one on the Celtics truly had an answer for Brunson over the course of the season. Brunson generated 25 points on 10 of 24 shooting against the all-defensive tandem of Derek White and Drew Holiday. Through the stock exchange combo did a good job. I don't understand that reference. Has anybody ever called them that? No. They did a good job of keeping him off the free throw line, only shooting 1 foul over the 112 possessions defended. So they have the whole breakdown on it. Holiday defended him for 10 minutes of total time for 13 points and a shooting percentage of 46.2. Jaylen Brown, we just mentioned, 12 minutes, over 12 minutes, 26 points, 10 of 17. That's 58%. Unless you round up, then it's 59. Derek White, 12 minutes, 42 seconds, 12 points, 4 of 11 shooting, 36%. Jason Tatum, 3 minutes for 10 points and 3 of 4 shooting, 75%. Peyton Pritchard, 4 minutes, 36 seconds, 22 points, 9 of 12 shooting. And just to finish up the detail, and then I want your thoughts on this and the audience's thoughts. We have a live chat open if you're wanting to participate. Add your 2 cents. Positive comments will shout you out. In that third meeting in which Brunson didn't get to the charity stripe, the Celtics gave Peyton Pritchard a bunch of turns as the primary defender. Brunson was credited with 14 points on 6 of 6 shooting, with Pritchard defending him. The trio of White that game, the trio of White, Holiday, Brown, combined to hold Brunson scoreless on 0 for 7 shooting with 3 turnovers in that third regular season meeting. So the strategy here, Skaz, you put Peyton Pritchard on him as the primary defender, you let him heat up, you let him wear himself out, you let him punch out, and then you put the other 3 on, and now you've shut down Jalen Brunson, right? That's the easy. That's how math works, JJ Redick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna call Peyton Pritchard a primary defender at any point, but I
They
understand.
did. It's Yahoo Sports. Yell at them, not me.
but
I'm aggregating.
but I understand what they're going for. Yeah, for me, this is a Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jalen Brown situation. Whatever way they see fit. But those are the three guys that are going to be taking turns covering Brunson. And we keep going back to this, but I just think it's a really bad matchup for the Knicks. Like, they are a good team. I know Celtics fans don't want to give them credit because the Celtics do just blow them out constantly because the Celtics are a better team. But the Knicks are a good team. Their problem with the Celtics is that the matchups are just not in their favor at all. Their big cat wants to step out and shoot. Porzingis wants to do the same thing, and he's better defensively. Brunson wants to, be kind of a shifty guard that draws fouls, and the Celtics have the best defensive backcourt in basketball. So, and then Mikal Bridges is supposed to be the Tatum stopper. I'm not sure I believe that there's such thing as a Tatum stopper right now, the way he's playing. Maybe that's, someone on OKC, maybe Lou Dort gets a chance at it in a month. But right now, the Knicks, I credit them for winning a tough series against the Pistons, but the Celtics are a different beast. They're the best team in the league. They're led by Tatum right now, who's playing at maybe the best he's ever played in the playoffs, dominating 3 straight 35-point games. So yeah, I think it's Brunson is going to have to be otherworldly in this series for them to even steal 2 or 3 games, in my opinion.
Yeah, to me, the question is more like, do the Knicks get a game in this series? And it's a case of the coach doesn't match the roster. Thibodeau is a defensive beat 'em like what the Orlando team did.
Yeah.
And he's got a roster of Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, and it's kind of soft. And it's Brunson and the Brunsonettes to coin Chris Gasper always called for the Celtics a long time Tatum and the Tatumettes, but it's Jalen Brunson and a bunch of other guys. So it comes down to how many games can Jalen Brunson win you, and I think it's one at best. If it gets to 6 games, something's gone sideways here. But kind of deeper than that is if you draft the series, Scaz, how do you draft the series? You go Tatum, Brown, Brunson, and then I go White, Porzingis, Holiday, Karl Anthony Towns, Bridges. And I don't even know if that I'd take those two over Horford.
Yeah, I mean, Cat deserves to be higher on that list, but I get it. He's soft.
No, I'm
And
totally
yeah,
disrespectful of Karl Anthony Towns because
yeah,
this goes back to my 85% of the league doesn't know how to play the game. He
yeah.
doesn't. He doesn't put effort in. There's the whole Jimmy Butler thing from years ago
I mean,
where
and,
it's I'll show you how to compete and I'll chase down your girlfriend. That was reported online by Black Online Sports. So that's not me, just gossiping about the NBA. But it's like, is Karl Anthony Towns going to actually compete? He kind of did the last 2 games against the Celtics as opposed to the first 2. I think he averaged like 29 points or something like that in the last 2 meetings between the Celtics and the Knicks. But Karl Anthony Towns ain't going to show up and play hard, especially if you get Horford, sticking an elbow in his rib cage or something like that. That's the sad thing about this series, guys, is that it's a total mismatch. And I mean this as disrespectfully as possible. Celtics in 3. I mean, I say 5 because Brunson's going to get 1, but really, it's the Celtics are going to dominate this team. It's just a matter of how bad the bloodbath is going to be.
yeah, that really does seem to be the sentiment, even nationally. Like all the talking heads, Celtics in 5, which does make me a little nervous. But I'm with you on the coaching as well. We all, Celtics fans are very familiar with Tibbs. He was Doc Rivers, who I'm sure we'll get to at some point, the defensive coach here in 2008. But yeah, I agree that he's not really a fit for that roster. Mike Malone's a guy who I wonder, if he ends up there. His dad was a coach there. I think he was an assistant there. He's from the area, I believe. So that's something because Tibbs in that roster, I'm with you. It's not a good fit. That's more of a like Rick Carlisle or like Mike D'Antoni roster, not a Tom Thibodeau roster. So uh, I'm trying to like in my mind come up with a way that the Knicks somehow push this to 6 or 7, and maybe they play the intense defense the Magic do, but I don't think they have the size. They don't have the size the Magic did. They don't have the physicality. Like, give the Magic credit because they were two guys. They were Boncaro, Wagner, and the Boncaroettes or whatever you want to call them in that series because that's all they had. The Knicks at least have scoring options. I just don't think it's kind of like the Pacers last year, where if you try and run and gun with the Celtics, they're just better at it than you are. So like everything the Knicks want to do, the Celtics are just better. They're just better at it. It's really simple, but that's kind of how I feel about the series. Every way the Knicks could take advantage of the Celtics just have the edge right now.
So if you go numerically, if you go by the points per game, the Knicks, you'll be surprised at this, Skaz. The Knicks during the regular season averaged 115.8 points per game. The Celtics averaged 116.3. I would not have guessed that would have been as close. But then you go to the most important statistic in basketball, which is three-pointers attempted. The Celtics average 48 three-pointers attempted, and the Knicks are 27th, 34 three-point attempts per game, and they were shooting at 37%, Skaz. The math for the Knicks does not work in this series. Like,
No.
the roster on paper doesn't work. The roster in person doesn't work. The math does not work. And that's boring, but that's the reality of the situation. You give me the most contrarian a-hole of all time. I don't think he would pick the Knicks to win
Yeah,
this series.
I'm with you. And you mentioned the cat thing, and he's a good player, but I mean, look at Rudy Gobert the other night. He has 27 and 24 in a closeout game. And say what you want about Rudy Gobert, he's been flamed online as much as any NBA player over the last couple of years. From, he gets put on an island every once in a while when someone takes him out to the 3-point line, and it looks like he's hopscotch, basically trying to cover some of these guys. But Rudy Gobert's a guy who he grinds. He's going to get you 24 rebounds. He plays his game inside, like tough, physical. He was destroying the Lakers. Cat, I don't, if it turns into Porzingis and Horford are, banging down below and getting rebounds, I don't know if Cat's going to get in there and mix it up. And now Mitchell Robinson's a guy where they didn't have him against the Celtics. And some people will say, oh, Mitchell Robinson's the big difference maker. And
He's not.
Yeah. So he's a okay to good player. He's not a series difference maker. He's not.
He is Skaz. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, please.
Mitchell Robinson is a great NBA 2K player. And what I mean is he has all these great attributes. He should be a 25-12 guy every night. And do you know why he's not, Skaz?
I have a feeling I know where this is going.
He doesn't know how to play basketball. He doesn't know how to play the game. And that is not just Jay Stu, cranking out tape on the Knicks. I was sitting courtside during a Celtics-Knicks game, and I happened to be sitting next to a Knicks scout. And I said to him, what is Mitchell Robinson's problem? And he told me he doesn't know basketball, doesn't understand concepts of how to play the game. And so if that's the case, you have this guy who's got all this size, all this like raw talent, and he's an underachiever because he didn't know how to play a game. He can't get to 25 and 12 unless it's just some random night, because he doesn't understand, go over here and do this, and conceptual plays, right? And that's why, and some of that might be coaching, but Thibodeau's a good coach, right? But if you can't understand what Tibbs is telling you, then it's no good. But he's one of the 85% who can't play the game, who doesn't understand how to play the game.
Yeah, and we talk about series guys that can change a series or series X factors. Obviously, it's Tatum and Brunson in this series; they're the big guns. But guys on the Knicks who could impact the game. Josh Hart's a guy who I think does know how to play basketball. I think he's a guy that kind of Derek White-esque is wrong because he's not the offensive player Derek White is, but he makes an impact everywhere. He just does a little bit of everything, gets in the way. Not a great offensive player, but knows his spots, will facilitate, gets a ton of rebounds for a guy his size. So that's a guy with the Celtics rebounding issues that I could see being kind of a pain. This series just plays hard. Every possession he would fit on that Magic team perfectly. But the Celtics, getting Drew Holiday back, I'll just go back to it. I think that's a massive thing in this series. And I think that does kind of make Peyton Pritchard a little more expendable, maybe loosens him up a little bit, because I didn't think Pritchard was great. Obviously, he had flashes in the Magic series where he was great. I think game 1, and then he had, late in game 5, maybe second half of game 5. But, there are game 4, I don't know if he scored a point. I think, and he was out there with, 2 minutes left in the game. And that's a
I kind of
situation.
excuse that though a little bit, Skaz. I excuse the lack of points because I think Peyton Pritchard played very well defensively.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm saying though, is if
Yeah.
Drew's back, that should free Peyton Pritchard's offense up. Like having Holiday back, he's the primary ball handler.
Yep.
They don't need to rely on Pritchard for that. They don't need him out there. He can, kind of just come in, be the, microwave oven off the bench, just let him go. So that's something there. I just think the Celtics, with the rest they got, how they looked in round 1, I think the Magic were a good thing for the Celtics. I think they got them ready to go. They're, battle tested is a little strong when you're beating a 7 seed, but I think they're mentally ready. They're veterans now. This is not, we don't have to worry about them. Too much rust, or are they mentally going to take the Knicks seriously? No, these guys this is business for them. They know what they want to do. Round 1 means absolutely nothing. Round 2 means absolutely nothing. They're going to dismantle the Knicks, I think, in 5 games. Like you said, I really do think this is a gentleman's sweep.
I'm sorry, Skaz. Did I have an instance of a host not listening?
Oh
With
no,
the
I don't
Pritchard
know.
and the defense thing.
No. I think you were just accentuating my point.
I'm
Just
like, did
saying,
I
like,
drift off because the Cavs are trying to make a comeback here, and just like you said something, and I was like, oh, I got to add to this, and it was like word for word the exact same thing that you said.
No, it was
Okay.
basically where I was going. So it was a perfect lead in. But yeah, I think
All right.
Holiday being back, let's Pritchard's offense get going, hopefully, because they need it.
So that's the other thing about the Celtics, as we brought up earlier, have a clean injury report.
Yes.
I don't know how clean it actually is, but I'll go with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if Tatum's wrist is taped up, or Holiday's got the long bandage covering up the hamstring, then then you've got a bullseye. Stan Van Gundy, all those Van Gundys, they're all
Yeah.
But your point is valid. Is that now the Celtics can throw Holiday, Brown, White, Tatum, Pritchard all at Jalen Brunson if they want to. The other interesting thing is, I think I heard this. I did not do the statistical research on it, but I guess the Knicks sent Karl Anthony Towns at Tatum in the last 2 games, and Towns kind of lit Tatum up a little bit. I'd have to do the actual math on it, but I feel like somebody else said that, so I'll aggregate it here. To which I say, fine, no problem. Send Towns after Tatum, no problem, because that means Brunson isn't getting his, and Brunson is how the Knicks win this series. Like, Brunson has to have like a 40-point series, like
I'm with you.
40 points, 10 assists, and he's got to be, even if it's like second assist, he gets more of those. Like, that's how the Knicks win, is Brunson just carries the team on his back, and I don't think he's got it in him.
Not against this Celtics team. Not against these guards. Drew Holiday. I mean, Derek White might be the best defensive guard. He's top 5 for sure. I mean, just the way. So Brunson's certainly going to have his hands full. And not that the Pistons didn't have good defensive guards, but nothing to what the Celtics do. And it's just that the Celtics can spread you out. They have 5 guys that can attack you at any point. And, even if it's Al Horford out there, even if it's Hauser, like, these guys can all shoot. So that's where the Knicks, you just can't get caught sleeping against the Celtics. And unfortunately, I think this is a Knicks team that does a little bit of sleeping during games sometimes.
They also have 5 guys. The Celtics have 5 guys who can defend and switch. They have 6 guys that can defend and switch without issue. And that's the other thing. And it's, yeah.
No, and just another thing too is if you watch the end of that Knicks Pistons game, the Pistons threw up all over themselves. That was an all-time choke. They were up 7 or 8 with a minute 30 left or whatever it was. The Celtics are not doing that. Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, Joe Mazzulla, like they are not going to choke games away. The Knicks stole two
Let's
games
hope
from the
not.
Pistons. Yeah, well, yeah, but not in the way the Pistons did. The Pistons
Right.
basically, got porked by the refs and the clock, but whatever. And then they literally gagged one away and dropped the ball out of bounds. This Celtics team is more talented, than the Knicks, and also I think just more mentally prepared, all that stuff. So the Knicks know what's coming, but do they have any way to stop it? I don't think so.
I've seen a couple weird things. Like you mentioned the Knicks Detroit end of the series where Detroit can't get a shot off
Yeah,
because Bill
Malik
Simmons
Beasley.
voted for Malik Beasley as the sixth man of the year. How'd that
Yep,
work out for you, Bill Simmons?
not great.
Um, and then the NCAA championship game, that was it the Houston player who had the ball in his hands and just dropped it?
Didn't get a shot off. Yeah,
Yeah, like that's just because they're fresh in my mind. Like how many times you see a possession and they don't get the shot off because they have fumbled the ball.
yeah.
And of course, with sports gambling, I think of like, was there money on the line there? Because that's how I'm wired.
I think it might happen in Warriors Rockets too. I think there was one of those at the end of the game where a shot didn't get off. But
Okay, then. So then again,
yeah,
are we shaving points? Are we at Blue Chips? That's a movie from 93, 94. Still one of the great all-time press conferences of all time is the at the end where he's like, "Oh yeah, I gambled," and he goes through why. It's like it's tremendous. And Ed O'Neill sitting there, who I still remember mostly from Married with Children. Um, so Celtics in 5. Skaz, any other points you want to hit on this Knicks series?
No, not really. I'm excited. So it'll be tomorrow night. Will be game one, Wednesday, and then Saturday. So we'll have
Yep.
3 games to react to next week. I just can't wait for the games to start. I'm very happy the Celtics got the little break, but I'm chomping at the bit at this point. Give us some playoff basketball. Uh, and then yeah, I mean the last time these teams played in the playoffs, the Knicks won. I think it was 2013. So maybe I know it's 12 years ago, but always good when a Boston team can beat a New York team in the playoffs.
I know, I agree with that. Some other stuff around the NBA.
This is what I'm
Before
excited for.
before I yell and scream about Doc Rivers, before I give you my LeBron James conspiracy theory, I do want to shout out Greg Popovich.
Yeah, of course.
Greg Popovich, 5 championships with the Spurs. Uh, one of the great. He became the GM in '94. He became the coach because he saw Tim Duncan coming, tanked David Robinson for that shortened season, got the ping pong ball to Tim Duncan, and he won 5 championships. So bravo. You won the lottery, Greg Popovich. You're a Hall of Fame coach. Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't get Tim Duncan, Greg Popovich probably goes back to being the GM, and who knows about the Spurs.
What a take.
That's my passive aggressive way of dumping on
What
Greg
a take. What a take.
Popovich.
I'd still take him over Eric Spoelstra. I'll say
So
that.
I would too. And I
Yeah.
say that kind of facetiously, but it's if I'm going to criticize Rick Pitino for leaving college because he thought he was going to get Tim Duncan, don't I then have to criticize Greg Popovich for thinking that, okay, David Robinson's on his last run, he gets hurt, and it's like, okay, let's just tank for Tim Duncan and hope.
It's kind of brilliant. It's kind of
Right?
brilliant.
Right? Like
Got to give him
it
credit.
say for example, like you're like you're a no skill producer, right? And
Been
you
there.
happen to get a call from Felger and Maz while 98.5 is on the uptick. Hey, you want to come produce the show? Yup, I'm right here. Come on
Hey,
down. And then it's 13 years later, and you're still a hack producer, and you're just hanging on to the coattails of Felger and Maz.
that's the dream. That's the dream right there. Oh, too good.
So Greg Popovich, shout out to you. Yeah, you're retired. Good. Um, which leads into a couple of interesting things. Who goes to the Spurs to be the third guy? Wemby, DeAndre Fox, Giannis,
Cooper Flag.
LeBron.
I don't know. I
And
like
that's not
Cooper.
and that's not my LeBron conspiracy, by the way.
Cooper
But
Flag. Put Cooper Flag and Wemby together. I don't know.
that would be interesting. That'd be interesting.
I can't see Giannis there. Giannis feels like Brooklyn to me. I don't know why. I
Kevin
just
Durant?
yeah, Kevin, but really, from Phoenix to San Antonio, I don't know. The Durant thing, he's still a great player, tremendous player, but he just can't stay healthy, and neither can Wemby. So it's like you're becoming the reverse, Dallas Mavericks. You're getting offensive guys that can't stay healthy instead of Anthony Davis. So I just don't know what that does for them. If I'm the Spurs, I want younger. I didn't love the De'Aaron Fox move, but at least I think that's the ballpark of the move they should be making. A younger guy who can run with Wemby and make stuff happen. But I think Stephen Castle's a player. But yeah, they need another like true, star.
And then it goes to the LeBron James question. And that is, how bad is he hurt? How much time is he going to miss? Because my conspiracy theory is LeBron's going to get traded back to Cleveland. And his last year in basketball is going to be as a member of the Cavaliers. And that is assuming that the Cavaliers don't win the championship this year. They get bounced by the Pacers. They get bounced by the Celtics. They don't get to the finals and win a title. And I love Kenny Atkinson. I love the makeup of that team. I think they're a threat to beat the Celtics in the next round. I don't think they will, but LeBron to the Cavs is an easy trade. It's Darius Garland and DeAndre Hunter. And that math works to get LeBron from the Lakers to the Cavs.
Don't you think just for the Lakers' sake though, they have to get more?
I
The
agree.
Cavs would have to throw something else into just to appease if that were to happen.
Draft picks, like
Yeah.
draft picks. But I'm also not necessarily convinced that Luka Doncic is going to stay a Laker.
If I'm the Lakers and I got to pick one, I'm taking Luka, obviously, not even a question.
But do you swing? And again, I think Giannis wants to go to the Lakers. I think Giannis wants to go to, I think Giannis's list is the Lakers. I think it's Toronto. I think Danny Ainge and Utah is on his list because he's got loyalty to the Toronto GM and Danny Ainge because they both scouted him in person. This is why I thought Giannis might end up a Celtic at one point. The Spurs would be interesting for Giannis. The Miami Heat would be interesting for Giannis. The Brooklyn Nets, because they have
The
10
Mikal
draft picks
Bridges.
they can trade. They have the Nets, the Brooklyn Nets have all sorts of player movability picks, all that stuff. OKC would be interesting for Giannis. I do think there's a move coming there, but you could swing a deal that sends Giannis to the Lakers, LeBron to the Cavs, and Luka to the Nets. And that shakes up the NBA in a good way, by the way.
That would be that's 2K right there. That would be
That's an NBA
absolute
2K trade. Yep,
that would be
absolutely.
absolutely wild. I mean, I have to believe
I
that
should put
Luka.
that in the trade machine and see if that actually works.
Yeah, honestly, just to see, but I have to think that Luka's staying in LA. I know that he's Luka, and LA doesn't mean the Lakers probably don't mean as much to him as other kids that grew up as Lakers fans and stuff like that. But it's still the Los Angeles Lakers. He still is well aware of the legacy of the franchise, all that stuff. So I think they do probably convince him to stay there, but. I don't know if him and JJ Redick are exactly a match made in heaven. From some of the press conferences and all that, and they need to totally overhaul the roster. The Luca needs guys that are lob threats and guys that can shoot. That roster's just not a good fit for him right now. But I think the Lakers this year was a massive win for them. I know they got knocked out in the playoffs, but they have Luka Doncic, so they're in a better place now than they were at the beginning of the season, regardless of how it ended. So the LeBron thing, the people saying, "Oh, that could have been his last game." LeBron
It
James
won't be.
will have a retirement tour. We all know LeBron James; he's not going away quietly, for better or worse. So him going back to the Cavs is fascinating. It's something that feels like it's been like
Percolating.
brown check mark rumored for a while now. So I don't see it happening. But if they got knocked out this year and wanted to try something crazy, and he wants LeBron loves a storybook. He loves the hype and everything. So I think the only way that he could really instead of winning one with the Lakers, really get like, universal praise, would probably be winning another one with the Cavs. So I wouldn't say it's completely off the table. It's wild to think about. But the NBA is the best reality TV show there is. So if there was ever a league it was going to happen, it's the NBA.
And especially with the fact that NBC is coming back with Round Ball Rock.
Great news, John Tesh. Thank you. Yeah,
That's the highlight of next season going into it is Round Ball Rock is coming back. All right. Skaz, anything else before we close with what you want as the hit song?
I will say I want to give a shout out to Russell Westbrook. Honestly, though, he deserves it. Russell Westbrook, this was a big, if you're a sports fan that likes revenge, if you're a sports fan that likes Schadenfreude, if you're a sports fan that likes, guys getting back at their old teams, this was an incredible weekend. Russell Westbrook defeating the Clippers and being honestly really, really good in the series. Like, vintage Russell. And don't get me wrong, he still had some crazy Russ plays where it looks like he's mashing every button on the controller when you're trying to play 2K and just loses the ball out of bounds or something. But he was great. The Clippers in multiple games left him open to shoot, and he beat him. He did. He was tremendous in that series, shooting the three, has totally reinvented himself as a 3-and-D guy. I've always been a big, fan of Russ. And look, he's saying bad years is even crazy because he's a Hall of Famer, but he's just a guy that's reinvented himself and got to knock his old team out of the playoffs. And I thought just the passion, him freaking out after the game was great. And then, the guy on the Dallas Stars there scoring a hat trick in the third period to kick his old team out of the playoffs. So a good weekend for revenge in sports, I would say.
I'm here for it. I'm here for revenge. Doc Rivers.
Bum.
We'll close with this. Doc Rivers. So I wasn't sure what the record actually was, so I put it into the Google machine, and there's a couple different ones. So Doc Rivers in elimination games. One source says it's 15-20. That feels too high. One says it's 17-32. That sounds more accurate. One says 1-9, which is obviously wrong. But I think Doc Rivers in elimination games is 17-32.
Woof.
What does Doc Rivers do well? And the answer, Skaz, Doc Rivers is great at blowing 3-1 series leads. That's what Doc Rivers is great at. There is no better coach. Like, the greatest accomplishment of all time is the Celtics winning the championship in 2008. Do you know why? It's because it's the only championship Doc Rivers ever won. And by the way, that team should have won more. That team should have at least won 2 of 3. And that game 7, I was talking to somebody about it this week. That game 7 against the Lakers, where the Celtics were going for 2 in 3 years, was one of the most painful Celtics games I've ever watched in my life. They had the lead. I didn't think they had a chance of keeping the lead, but they were tired. It was a game 7. They're all exhausted. But what does Doc Rivers do well? And the answer is he gives a good promo, he's friendly with reporters, and he blows playoff series leads. That's the only thing that he does well. Yes, Gaz.
He collects checks well, Jay Stu.
Oh,
He
yeah,
collects paychecks very well. I got to ask you a question after this weekend and Doc Rivers. Would you rather, you're heading into a game 7, Stu, would you rather have Doc Rivers as your head coach or James Harden as your star player?
James Harden.
He has now lost game 7s for 4 different teams, James Harden, after this most recent one. So, and I think he had 7 points or 8 points. That's a guy who just doesn't care. Talk about, like, you say James Harden, he's a great player. Well, in his prime, just an unbelievable player, but he doesn't give a crap. And I don't know. The Doc Rivers, I think, might be worse. I think you're right, because Doc Rivers does care, and he still stinks. Like, we had, my buddy Kyle Irving on from Underdog this week, and Joe was grilling him about Doc Rivers, and he said, and eventually Joe just said, Kyle, is he good at coaching basketball? And Kyle, to his credit, was like, honestly, I don't think so anymore. I just don't think I don't know what it is, but how do you hire him, Stu, after this? Like, if you're another team, does he get another shot?
He does, because he works the media well. He's a good communicator with players. The problem is he's not good on the grease board. He doesn't have Kevin Garnett. He doesn't have Tom Thibodeau. He doesn't have Lawrence Frank. Like, that was the key to that '08 team.
Sam Cassell,
Healthy, motivated Kevin Garnett.
100%.
And everything else fell into place. I know I was around that team a lot.
Yeah.
And like, I saw some sessions where it was Thibodeau who was leading the coaching session because Doc Rivers was in Orlando. So like, that's part of the reason why I think Doc Rivers is the most overrated coach in NBA history. And he thinks he's on the same level as Greg Popovich. He doesn't understand that, yeah, he's got a lot of regular season wins, but he's got one title.
Yeah.
And if you went through the talent that he's coached, you're like, wow, what an underachievement as a coach.
Crazy underachievement. Like those
Right?
Clippers team.
And there's a story out there that I saw within the last year on my TikTok algorithm about how the reason why Tim Duncan didn't join the Tracy McGrady Grant Hill Orlando Magic as a free agent was because Doc Rivers didn't want Tim Duncan's family to travel with him on the road, which is wild because Doc Rivers later would travel back and forth from Boston to Orlando all the time. The great hypocrisy there.
Yeah, I mean,
And
if you
Tim
get,
Duncan ended up in a bad family situation anyway, I think, if I remember that correctly.
oh, I have no idea. I was just gonna say, I would let Tim Duncan's family fly the plane if he wanted to play
Yes.
on my basketball team. Like, yeah, he's one of the greatest players of all time. So, yeah, the Doc thing, and for me, it's almost not even like that he only has one title. It's the blown series leads. Like, if you do that once or twice, fine, but he like blows. It's like annual every year. He's gonna blow a series lead. It's just that's the sign of a bad coach who doesn't have his guys ready to get over the hump and close out a series. And it's just I can't imagine him like being the head coach of my basketball team ever again. I think that would set me back in therapy years. I think if Doc Rivers came back. So let's hope that never happens.
There are certain people in this world who, if I find out that they're my boss, I'm out. I'm just going right up the street to Whole Foods, right up the street to Wegmans, right up the street to Stop and Shop, whatever the grocery store is. Here's my 2 weeks notice. I'm going to start bagging groceries there because I don't want to work for that person. Doc Rivers is on that list.
There you go. I'm
Like,
with you.
there are, it's one of these social media memes that I got recently. Might have gotten it last night. Let me find it so I quote it purposely. And here it is. And this is my final thought, Jerry Springer. I fully intend to haunt people when I die. I have a list.
There you go.
Doc Rivers, I would haunt. All right. I think that's the closing thought. Skaz, next week when we talk, we'll have 3 games to talk about.
What do you think?
If the Celtics are not up 3-0, it's because Jalen Brunson's win in the series was the Saturday night game in Madison Square Garden, which the NBA kind of wants.
Yes, I would say, maybe that Scott Foster game on Saturday night wouldn't shock me. Tony Brothers on Saturday night wouldn't surprise me. Zach Zarba, another one. Any of the big 3, then look out is what I would say.
Yep, that's how it is. And their game 7s, the Pacers are leading at halftime over the Cavs. There's a game 7 with Houston and Golden State, which should be good. And if Jimmy Butler chokes in that one, Skaz, that will be your leadoff thought next week.
You know it. But I think the Warriors are. I think they win. Maybe that'll be a cold take in about 3 hours. But I think the Warriors are moving on.
Yeah, that's okay. Warriors moving on is good for basketball. Giannis to the Warriors might happen too. That would make sense. All right, very good. Skaz, until next week.
See you, Stu.
Enjoy the basketball.